Everybody! Hello, Atomics!
Sorry we're a few minutes late. We were just having way too much fun, weren't we?
Chatting to Ian, yes. Guys, you're in for a real treat today. If you ever feel like you are a little bit introverted, then this is the session for you. Because being an introvert isn't like being a leper, as Ian has just told us. It's not a bad thing. It can be an amazing thing. So we're very lucky today to have Ian Anderson-Gray coming in and do a little session all about this. And Ian, if you don't know already, is also going to be speaking at Atomicon. Whoop, 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 all about how to do confident live video. So not only is he an absolute master at live video, he knows like everything in the world about live video and all the tools, but he's also got a background in singing, and he can help you overcome a lot of confidence as well. Get yourself broadcasting.
So you can be more confident at saying the word singing correctly.
Yes, singing. Yes.
I think singering should be a word.
Singering, that, yeah. I feel like suggestions of what singering means. All right, we've got people.
Ian, do you want to? We'll say hello to people. But Ian, do you want to give an actual introduction to yourself?
An actual introduction.
Yeah, tell us more about your singering.
My singering, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm going to talk a little bit more about my background in my presentation. But yeah, I live in Manchester, so just down the road from you guys, and my background is singing. I help entrepreneurs level up their impact, authority, and profits using live video. That's a lot of what I do these days. But I'm definitely a geek, and I love social media tools. I blog a lot about social media tools, and I'm speaking at Atomicon. I'm really, really excited about that. And I'm also going to be at Social Media Marketing World as well, speaking there, as well as you guys. And I think I hear that you might be doing something quite exciting there too.
Wow. It's a little bit of a few more people are going to be in our room this year than they were last year. Yes. So I feel like we could do with some confidence tips for that, Ian, maybe as well.
It's all right. It's only a few thousand people.
Yeah, it's not that many. Ian is also our unofficial tech support of Andrew and Pete. So I feel like we should get him on some kind of retainer for the amount of tech questions we fire over Facebook Messenger to him. So thank you for that, Ian. Ian is your guy. Should we see who's watching? We've got loads. We've got Deborah saying hello. Mark Orr is watching.
Hey, Deborah. Hey, Mark.
Jacqueline Leake says good morning. Razan says, I'm not an introvert socially, but I'm super shy when it comes to posting stuff to do with my business.
Interesting.
That's interesting. We've got, I wonder if you can be introverted in business and extroverted in life. Is that a thing?
Maybe.
Could be a thing. Trish says hi. Trish is epic. Trish is American, so she's got up super early. Just for you, Ian.
Ah, that's impressive. Is that East Coast or West Coast?
She is
in the middle.
East Coast, I'm pretty sure. East Coast.
Yeah. That would be like 1:30 in the morning West Coast, which would be very, very keen.
Yeah. Maybe she hasn't gone to bed yet. Who knows? Eve is watching. Razan is watching. And Ian is watching.
Ian Anderson-Gray is watching, apparently.
That's good.
I've heard of
Right. Okay. So feel free to ask questions as we go along, guys. Post them in the chat, and we'll either interrupt Ian or we'll do a big Q&A at the end. But I don't think there's anything left to say other than let's get rocking.
Let's get rocking. Ian, over to you.
Let's do it. Let's see if I can actually find the button to share the screen, because it's now changed. Can you believe that? There we go. Right.
There we go.
Can you see that, guys? Just checking.
Pardon?
Can you see that?
Yes, we can see that. And we can see your call recorder.
Oh dear, that's no good.
There we go. Perfect.
There we go. Technology. Cool. Okay. Well, thanks so much for having me on.
Sorry, your call recorder is still there.
It likes to pop up.
There we go.
Okay, cool. That's Ecamm. Thanks so much for having me on, because this is something that I've been thinking about a lot, about the whole idea of being introverted and how how you can use social media as an introvert. And I've thought about this a lot, but I've never actually given a presentation about this topic. And so you guys have forced me, in a sense, to look at this in a lot more detail. And I realized I've been talking about this a lot in a lot of my talks. So I wanted to think today, does it make a difference if you are introverted and you are using social media for your business? How can you cope? And I wanted to talk a little bit about my background and how I realized that I was an introvert, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what an introvert means. Now, I don't know if anyone who is watching this recognizes one of these things. Andrew and Pete, do you recognize what this is?
It looks like...
It looks like a ZX Spectrum to me.
Yeah, I don't know how you managed to work that one out. Anyway, I didn't actually have one of these. I had a ZX Spectrum Plus, and this was in the early 80s, and I used to program in my bedroom. I used to love this. I used to lock myself away. I didn't actually physically lock the room, but I enjoyed programming on my computers, and it was time alone, time when I could just really focus on one thing. I loved it. But as well as that, I was a musician, and here is me playing the cello. I don't know how old I am. Maybe I'm about 8 or 9 there. And when I was a little bit older, I was a choir boy. There's a very cute picture of me there on the left.
Oh, man.
Embarrassing photo of me on the right with a ridiculous haircut, playing the cello with my mum on the piano. So music was a big deal for me as a teenager. It's a way for me to play with other people. So I was in an orchestra. I could play with other people and that social element. But also it was a way that I could focus on one thing, get really deep into a particular thing, which was music in this case. But I had a decision to make, because as well as being passionate about music, I was also passionate about science and technology. Before I went to university, I moved around a lot at school. My dad's job changed a bit, and I was in England at the time, but shortly after I think it was in the end of junior school, we had to move up to Scotland. My parents are Scottish. I love Scotland, but unfortunately I was teased for being English at school and bullied quite a bit. I managed to acquire a Scottish accent pretty pronto for survival technique. Which time I then moved out to England again. I got teased for having a Scottish accent. A lot of that experience that I had probably made me more shy and introverted. It focused me even more onto my on my own, really. And I wonder whether people watching have had that experience, whether they are naturally introverted, but maybe they had a bad experience and they, for whatever reason, that could have pushed them more into introversion. And that was certainly the case for me. You always love to get out and have some alone time as well to gather my thoughts. And this is me walking my dog. And this photo actually became the calendar for Oldham and Saddleworth in the mid 90s. That took a picture of me, and this became a calendar. I think I was the January edition.
Wow.
Okay,
January boy.
So anyway, I had to make a decision about my career. What was I going to do? Was I going to go down the music route, or was I going to go down the science and tech route? Well, in the end, music won. And I've shared this before in some of my other talks. I think you may have seen this, Andrew and Pete, but I don't know if you can guess where I am in this. This is an opera. When I was at the Royal Northern College of Music, I trained to be a singer at the Royal Northern College of Music in Manchester, and this was an opera in our first year.
Are you the woman sat down?
Am I the what?
Are you the woman sat down in the middle?
No, the one in the stocking stood up with the leg up in the air.
No, not. What are you trying to say? That's me there. So they put me as a paparazzi photographer for some reason in this. So anyway, I was a performer. I loved to go on stage. And then I found myself in the world of social media, speaking at conferences. This is me at Social Media Marketing World, either a couple of years ago, I think. And I just wanted to share my story, because I think a lot of people think that if you're an introvert, that somehow means you're really shy and that you aren't able to kind of go out and speak to lots of people. Actually, I think the opposite is true. Many of the speakers I know are actually introverts. And so I wanted to kind of dig a little bit deeper into what an introvert actually means. This is another example of me on stage. Although I'm not giving a keynote at Social Media Marketing World, I did sing to thousands of people from the stage. This is me being a sleazy internet marketing guru. So I think introverts are often misunderstood, and I wanted to unpack what it means to be an introvert. So first of all, Andrew and Pete, what would you describe? What's your definition of an introvert? What would you say?
Oh, that's a good question.
Put you on the spot there.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, well, Pete's definitely an extrovert, and I think I am an introvert. Like, I think it's people that not necessarily don't like social interaction, but it tires them out.
Yeah. So, for example, if we are like a networking party or a social event, as the hours go by, I'll get more and more like energetic and enthused and happier. And Andrew, although he enjoys it, it drains him. Like, so like after a few hours, he's like, oh, I just want to like go have some alone time.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that. So yeah, I think you're right. I think you are right in your definitions there. So before I talk about that, this is a book I highly recommend. If you can think you are an introvert, or if you're an extrovert and you have lots of introvert friends, and actually, I think everyone should get this book because we're going to be interacting with extroverts and introverts on social media. So understanding, over 50% of the audience is really, really important. So this is the definitive book on introverts by Susan Cain. It's called Quiet. It's the power of introverts in a world that can't stop talking. Highly recommended. So what is an introvert? So I looked up a dictionary on Google, and Google, of course, is always right. It says that an introvert is a shy, reticent person. But do you know what? I totally disagree with that definition. The psychology part says a person predominantly concerned with their own thoughts and feelings rather than with external things. I think that sounds like a sociopath.
It sounds really like selfish.
Exactly. And I think this is really interesting because I think this is the perception of people. This is what people think introverts are. And a lot of people, when I say to them that I'm an introvert, they say, that's rubbish. You're not an introvert. You're an extrovert because you can get on stage, you can sing in front of lots of people. You're not an introvert. But that is not the definition of an introvert. This is what I think an introvert is. It's someone who prefers calm, minimally, if I can say that word, I actually practice this, minimally stimulating environments. Introverts tend to feel drained after socializing and regain their energy by spending time alone. And I think that's really important. This is not to say that introverts don't enjoy spending time with people. That's not the case at all. It's just that it is draining of the time. And so I think introverts need to be really careful with how they spend their time, whether it's, online on social media or whether it's actually with real people in real life as well. And introverts and extroverts need to try and work at understanding each other. Introverts need to respect and understand that extroverts get their energy from spending time with people. And extroverts need to understand that introverts need that space and that time from time to time. So I've got a quiz. So what I'm going to do is for each of these questions, if you answer yes to these, you get a point. And this is not to say introverts are better than extroverts. This is what I'm interested in is how introverted are you? So what I want you to do is when you answer yes to any of these questions, add them up, and at the end what I want you to do is put the number in the comments and we can see how introverted everyone is.
Okay, so we all keep a tally in our heads or just counting our fingers. Every time we would say yes, then we get a point, and then when it's done everyone will put the numbers in.
That's right.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Is that okay?
We'll play along as well.
We've got a slight lag as well on the video, so we'll give people time to type it in.
Yeah, there'll be probably about a 10-second lag. So let's do it. So question number 1 is you enjoy having time to yourself. So of course extroverts could have this as well. It's okay. Question number 2 is being around lots of people drains your energy. Question 3, your best thinking occurs when you're by yourself. 4, you're the last to raise your hand when someone asks for something from a group. 5, other people ask you your opinion. 6, you often wear headphones when you're in a public situation. 7, you're not great at confrontation. You prefer not to engage with people who seem angry or upset. You receive more calls, texts, and emails than you make unless you have no choice. So maybe you're allergic to the telephone or something like that. Next one, you're allergic to small talk. It's not to say that you can't do small talk. It's just that you'd prefer not to. You'd prefer to get a bit deeper. Next one is too much stimulation leaves you feeling distracted and unfocused. The next one is you are very self-aware. And you are drawn to jobs that involve independence. Whoops, let's go back. So I like the last one because that's kind of, I feel quite gooey inside because I've chosen the life of an entrepreneur, you see. So that's so add those up in your head. I'll just leave it up there for a little bit and count them up. And then in the comments, if you can just put in how many points you got for that. There should be, so how many are there? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah.
So there's 12. So we're going to put in the comments now how many we got. And if everyone watching could also do the same, this is going to be really interesting.
Yeah. I can see Mark Orr is getting all geeky and talking about that he had a BBC Micro when he so there we go. We can have a chat.
Someone else, Low also had a ZX Spectrum as well.
Oh, there we go. I missed that. Being all nostalgic now.
Found that Deborah suggested the book Quiet literally like seconds before you put the slide up. It was spookily weird.
Oh wow, that's so funny.
So Trish McKinley is a 10, Deborah Davidson's a 7, Razan is a 10, Jen is a 7, Simon is a 12. It's not competition, Simon, but if it was, you would be winning. I got 8 and Pete got 4.
Yeah. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, well, it's interesting, isn't it?
The lowest out of everyone.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so it isn't a competition. And actually, if you're in the middle, I mean, there is such a thing as an ambivert. So you can be in the middle. And I think sometimes, for example, for me, I can be an extrovert sometimes. So for example, at Social Media Marketing World, which is this mad conference, I am constantly with people for the whole week. And I managed to get myself through all of that. But at the end of it, I'm absolutely drained. So Simon says, though, not sure the confrontation question is a characteristic of an introvert. And I think, not all of these are, on their own, not all of these are necessarily a definition of being an introvert. And that one is, I think some introverts can be very good at confrontation, but some aren't. So it's, I think if all of these, if you add them all up, I think it's a very good characteristic of an introvert. So I hope you found that interesting. Right. Okay.
That's really cool.
So an introvert gets their energy from being alone, whereas an extrovert gets their energy from being around other people. Now, there's two other characteristics. There's being shy, which is a fear of people or social interactions. That's not the same as an introvert. In fact, you could be a shy extrovert. I know a couple of shy extroverts out there. They love being around people, but it takes them time to get to know people, and maybe they're a little bit fearful of going to a party, but once they're there, they love it. And of course, the opposite of shy is bold. No fear of people or social situations. You just go out there and you do it. So, I suppose you could be a bold introvert. That I don't know any bold introverts, but shyness and introversion, there are some similarities there. But I just wanted to put those there because it's not, if you're an introvert, it doesn't necessarily mean you are shy. You could actually be in the middle of being shy and bold, So I think it's a case of being aware of your superpowers and also know your limits. Being an introvert and also being an extrovert, you have superpowers. So you as an introvert will have superpowers that extroverts will not have. You have the ability to maybe go deeper. You might be the kind of person that people come to for advice and for thoughts. And there's lots and lots of advantages in being an introvert, but also know your limits. Know when it's time, maybe if you're going to a party, for example, Marie Forleo talks about this. She is actually, if you've heard of Marie Forleo, is an introvert. You would not think this, but there's a really interesting video where she talks about the fact that she always, when she goes to a party, she arrives early before loads of people arrive, and she then leaves early. And so I'm going to talk about some survival techniques for life, but also for social media and how you can cope as an introvert. So here are some tips, some survival tips for introverts.
Hey.
And the first thing to say is that actually social media is perfect for introverts. When I first went to social media conferences, quite a few years ago. I mean, social media marketing world is, I know I keep going on about that as a conference, but what was interesting is that pretty much 80% of people that I spoke to would call themselves an introvert. And I think because entrepreneurs, online business owners who are involved with social media they're drawn to this world of maybe interacting with people online or being alone if they're an introvert. So I think if you are introverted, don't worry. Social media is actually a really, really good place to be if you're an introvert. But do remember to keep your energy topped up because there are things that can drain your energy. And so you need to make sure that you have some alone time, some me time, and to plan that into your schedule throughout the week. Build deep relationships, not just in life, but also online. So this is something that I found that I love Twitter, for example, but Twitter can sometimes be very superficial, just toing and froing of short little messages. And I got frustrated with that. And so I found that going on Facebook, or it actually used to be Google Plus when that was a thing, I like to create these big, deep discussions. And I still do that today on Facebook. I will post some really interesting, deep questions and get some really amazing conversations that come out of it. So you could start the conversation for example, if you're marketing your business on Twitter, and then bring that conversation over to a different social network that allows you to have longer comments. Even today with 280 characters, there's only so much you can mention in 280 characters. So, but build deep relationships, invest in your relationships, find your community, and invest in your tribe and build advocates through those deep conversations, because that ultimately is how we build and grow relationships with people. It's through those long and deep conversations. Now, something I found really, really useful to my business, and I think this is actually really useful for extroverts as well. It just might not sound as appealing to extroverts. And you tell me, Pete, as our resident extrovert here, whether this appeals to you.
This would haunt me.
Would it? Okay.
He hasn't said anything yet. He's just looking at a photo.
I have to admit, I don't do this enough, but it is basically the idea of going out, preferably on your own, or if, for example, with you guys, it would just be you two together, go away to somewhere. It could be in the hills, it could be somewhere away from people, and ideally you leave technology behind. So you just go armed with pen and paper, you go for a walk, and you get some time for thinking by yourself, but maybe thinking about what your goals are, what your dreams are for your business. And I would recommend doing this every couple of months, at least for half a day, preferably a whole day. Go out and have some thinking time, walking about, and plan things down, write on paper. The reason I say leave technology at home is because I think that can get in the way of the thought process. So actually the physical action of pen to paper and getting your thoughts down really, really helps. And this has changed my business. When I've done this, I've planned so much. I've been able to plan my content for the year. I've planned what I want to do in terms of my speaking and courses that I want to create. It's been absolutely amazing. So I highly, highly recommend it. Ideally, do part of it on your own. Even if you're an extrovert, you might find that difficult, but it's still really, really important. So how does that sound, Pete? Is that still a nightmare for you?
Yeah, no Wi-Fi equals Pete going crazy.
I mean, no Wi-Fi scares me a little bit as well.
But saying all that, like we do regularly go out to the pub, like a quiet pub, and just
find a booth.
plan. Yeah, we'll find a quiet booth so no one's like around, and we'll just plan and chat, and we'll take notes on paper, and plan stuff, and that is always really good. And I think sometimes just getting out of the office is really good, finding somewhere quiet. And sometimes, for example, when we were creating our 90-10 rule talk, we would go for walks almost every day and just chat about it, like when no one was around, because it was just nice to, get away from it all and just think for a little bit together.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good. And it sounds like you were switching your mobiles off. You didn't have those constant interrupting notifications. And I suppose that's what I mean here, by switching Wi-Fi off or going away from technology, because you don't want any interruptions and you want to be able to think and write down. And that reminds me of something else. So we've talked about going away by yourself, but one thing that you two have got is you've got each other. So a lot of business owners out there are working on their own. This is certainly the case for me. And although the default for me is to work on my own, I need people. This is why I'm in mastermind groups. I'll talk a little bit about those later. So actually going away and talking with other people is really, really helpful. And I did this recently. It wasn't really a mastermind day. It was more of a implementation day. So we met up at a place in near Preston, and we basically just we hardly talked to each other, but we planned content. So I planned the content for the year, and occasionally I asked questions, and we kind of we bounced ideas off people. So I think as an introvert, we need people as well. You need people.
Sounds good. Yeah.
To definitely do that as well. And I find those implementation days are absolutely vital to my business. So I mentioned a little bit about Twitter, but this is not just about Twitter. This is just our interactions with other people. Social media has the word social in it. So it's not just a case of scheduling your content and pumping content out all the time. But I have this bee in my bonnet about not just saying thank you. I've actually got a blog post about this. I'll see if I can put it in the comments later. And I got the idea that I was inspired by a post by Mark Schaefer quite a few years ago, where he was finding, as he was scaling up his Twitter account, he was just not able to interact with all the people. He was getting so much engagement. And okay, that's great for Mark Schaefer. But I was finding myself that a lot of people were saying, if I was sharing their content, they were saying, thanks for sharing. And then that was the end of the conversation. So as an introvert, I find this really, I find this difficult, because it's small talk on social media, but it's also the end of the conversation. If I just say, thanks for sharing, thanks for the RT, or, just think of how many things you're missing out on as a result of you just making it that simple. So don't just say thank you. I'm not saying don't say thank you. It's not a case of not being polite.
I love that, and I constantly have a rant about that to Andrew. Even when we were on the Social Media Examiner podcast, I even went on and on about it, because it is like, it's almost like a slap in the face. Like if someone says, "Hey, great video," and you just reply with like a thumbs up or a thanks.
That the emoji.
The emoji's even worse.
Yeah, it's like, but those people, if you start a conversation with them, you can bring them back and make them engage more, and it makes them want to engage with your future posts as well.
I feel like the social networks themselves need to, like, they make it so easy to do that. I think that's the big problem. Like, they'll have the suggested replies, and it's like, especially LinkedIn, like LinkedIn DMs have those crappy suggested replies. It's like, well, we're actually in a DM here. We're meant to be having a conversation if you're talking in DM, not just saying thanks.
That's so true. And there used to be tools that did this. So there were tools that would automate this process. So particularly if you followed somebody, you'd have the automated direct message, and it would be like, thank you for following me. And it's like, and
what should we say instead? So Julia's saying, I really struggle with thinking of things to say to people online, and Jessica agrees, because sometimes I even struggle, like when people share a blog, but they don't necessarily say anything. They're just like, hey, check out this great blog from Andrew and Pete. Like what should we be saying?
That's a great question. And in the article, I actually come up with quite a few ideas. So Yeah, I'll just coming back to that, and I've got a list of things, and it's funny actually.
Cool.
I don't know whether this is an introvert extrovert thing, but I think sometimes we just need to have ideas of how to interact with people. We don't need ideas necessarily to interact with people in real life, although sometimes I think we do, like at networking. I mean, I hate networking groups, but sometimes you almost need to have like a list of things that you could say to people just to get used to it. But just before I go through a list of ideas, I think what you need to be thinking about is how can you serve your audience? So it's engagement. It's a two-way conversation. Don't just say thank you. It's about how can you add value? How can you make their life a little bit easier? It's not actually about you. And as an introvert, sometimes I think we can become a little bit, or certainly I can only speak for myself. I can almost become a little bit self-obsessed. I don't want to be, but because I'm always analyzing things, I'm thinking about myself all the time. It can end up being about myself. And that is not the way to engage on social media. It's about them. It's about your audience. So here is my thank you replacement list. Instead of just saying thank you, here are some ideas that you could implement. So one thing which hardly anyone does, and I have to admit, I hardly do this myself sometimes, I need to remind myself, is to send a personalized welcome video. This is really easy on Twitter and other networks. You just basically record a quick video, 20 seconds, and just saying if somebody has followed you or somebody has liked your content or read your content, why don't you just say thank you so much for reading that. What did you think about the article, and do a little bit of research on the person. It doesn't have to take long, but you could at least look at their bio, look at their website, and find out a little bit more about them. Now you could there are other tools out there. One tool I really love is called Bonjoro. This is a way of sending personalized videos at scale. So one thing that I do is when people download a free guide that I've got, it links into my email software, and I get pinged to in Bonjoro to send them a personalized video. So I just quickly record the videos. I look up a little bit about them so I know who they are, and I will record a little video. So a lot of people aren't doing that, and I think personalization is so important. If somebody has shared an article of yours, don't assume they've necessarily read it, So one great thing is to ask them what they think of the article. Maybe you've written there's an idea in there, and ask them what they think about it. That's a really good thing to do. And if they haven't read it, they'll probably start reading it. Be generous, so it's not just about you. Share their stuff as well. So if they've shared some of your stuff, have a look at what they're doing as a business. Maybe they've got some videos or blog posts, and if it makes sense, share their stuff as well. Introduce them to someone new. A friend of mine was absolutely amazing at this. You go to a party, and what she'll do is she'll say, "Hey, look at this. Come over here, and I've just met this person here who's you'll love them. They're really good at this," and and then she'll just scarper off, and you're left talking to this new person. If you've ever had that experience, she's great at introducing people to people. But why don't you do that on social media? Maybe you find out something about somebody, and somebody else that they don't know that would be a really good fit for them in whatever way. So introduce them to somebody new. Be human and personal. So share what you're doing in your life, in your business, and talk about common ground. Ask them what they're doing in their lives. So just be personal and human. If you've got a sense of humor, and I think you've got a few videos on this, haven't you? I think you've got If You're Not Funny. Haven't you got a YouTube video on this?
Yeah, we do actually. I feel like we need some Twitter jokes for If You're Not Funny.
Yeah.
Try these replies.
Yeah, but just be funny. If you've got a sense of humor, don't be afraid of using that. Encouragement. I'm going to talk about the 5 love languages a little bit later on, but just encouragement is really good. People sometimes they'll have a bad day, so why don't you encourage them? And of course, use animated GIFs and emojis and things like that. So hopefully that's enough to get you started. Just come up with a list of different ideas and have that next to your computer or your phone as you engage with people each day. And The other thing I think is that even so, social interactions for introverts in real life can be tiring, but I think also social interactions on social media can be tiring. And so I found this really useful to schedule each day to maybe 15 minutes or half an hour of social media engagement. This is just an example that I've come up with here. So for half an hour, maybe every morning, you go into your platforms and you engage with people. And then you get on to do something else. So from 9:30 to 10:30, I'm focusing on creating content. That's the me time. That's my introverted time. And then client work from 10:30 to 11:30. And then I'm planning on scheduling social media content as well. Now, scheduling social media content is really good because I can plan ahead. I don't have to spend lots and lots of time posting every single day. I can plan maybe a couple of days or a week ahead of worth of content. So plan either a couple of times per week to schedule your social media, but also every single day, maybe 10, 15 minutes of social media engagement time so that you're not losing all your energy by doing it all through the day. I think it's a really important thing for introverts. You could use a tool for this. I mean, you can use Twitter or Facebook itself, but of course I have to mention Agorapulse because it's an amazing tool that helps people to get through their social media comments. And so one of the reasons I love this, and there are other tools out there that do a similar job like Sendable and Sprout Social. Basically, you can get through all your comments on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. You can send them off to a VA if it makes sense to do so. But you can get down to inbox zero really, really quickly. You know which messages you've responded to. And it's a quick and easy way of doing that. And I think you have a video on that as well.
Yeah, we do. And I'm just about to put in the comments, we've got an extended free trial of Agorapulse for members. So I'm going to drop that in the comments as well. We love it.
Yeah. I can see Natalie Haley in there as well as one of the comments.
Oh, yeah, you can. You can. I should have checked these out, make sure they're not dodgy. Okay. Anyway, right. So I've mentioned this already, so I'm not going to go into this again. But as an introvert, I think that the ability to go deep into conversations is one of most introverts' superpowers. So in your conversations, you probably find it easier to go into more detail and to go deeper. And so use that in your conversations and don't shy away from that. But be aware of cabin fever. Cabin fever. I think you've got to be. The problem with this is that as an introvert, sorry, I should warn you about that.
That was amazing.
That's brilliant.
I feel like you should use those more.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'd forgotten about it. I've got this as well.
Is that a hack? If you're introverted, just use sound effects.
Yeah. What was that noise?
That was a sheep. Anyway, right. So, cabin fever is all to do it's basically what happens when you spend too much time alone. Now, extroverts reach cabin fever very quickly. Introverts, sometimes you will not even realize you have it. Now, I find this if I spend 3 or 4 days on my own in the office and I don't go out, I get cabin fever. I actually get depressed. And although my default state is working on my own in my office, if I don't get out, if I don't do things, if I don't interact with other people, I will go mad. I will slowly go mad. I will get depressed. And we're all different. Cabin fever will manifest itself in different ways depending on you. But I think we need to be aware of this. It's a real problem, particularly in the winter months when there is no sun, and that can exacerbate the cabin fever, basically. So your savior is this thing called a coffee shop. And this is not, depending on your business, this might not obviously be a possibility, but if you work alone with your computer, you can take your laptop to a coffee shop and you are not necessarily interacting with the people around you, but you are around people. And there's something magical about that just somehow being with other people, other human beings, even if you're not talking with them, can really get you out of that cabin fever state. And so I recommend, if you do work at home, get out, go to a coffee shop at least once a week or somewhere else like that. The other idea is masterminds, which I've mentioned before. So masterminds can either be a physical meetup with people, I meet up with a group of people in the northwest of England every month or so, and that's great. We talk about our problems in business, and we share ideas and thoughts and what we're working on. And together we help each other grow in our businesses. It's really, really good. Or you could meet online using Skype or Zoom with other people, either in a similar area to you or very different businesses, either locally or around the world. And masterminds, the whole idea of a mastermind has really changed my business. It's been an amazing thing for me. And I'm sure you would agree with that, guys, as well. Masterminds are so useful.
Completely. Especially for solopreneurs, small teams. It's just great to get external opinions on what you're working on.
Yeah.
And support.
Yeah.
And honesty as well. Let's face it, with social media, everyone is going on about how amazing life is and their business. They've got the perfect family photo, and like 5 minutes before that, they're probably like throwing plates at each other. But and they share this amazing photo of everything perfect. And of course, we know deep down everyone's lives aren't perfect. But I think we need an area, a safe place where we can actually share the difficult things that are going on in our lives. Actually, I've been in masterminds when people have cried and, been really upset, but together we've got through that. And where else are you going to do that? You can't go on social media and go, woe is me, and then my life is really difficult at the moment. I think a little bit of vulnerability and transparency is good online, but I think a lot of these things should be done within a safe place like a mastermind. So I highly recommend them. And then there's the whole concept of a jelly. Now, a jelly this was happened in New York quite a few years ago, probably over 10 years ago. And this was for entrepreneurs or freelancers who were getting cabin fever, and they wanted to meet with other like-minded people. So they met at an office in New York, and lots of freelancers came together and they worked on their own. Occasionally they talked to each other and they collaborated on things. And the reason it was called jelly is because they had loads of jelly beans on the table to eat. So this was the Oldham jelly. This was quite a few years ago, and we basically met up in Oldham Library, and we just did some work together and collaborated on things. And I set up a jelly in my village of Cheadle in south of Manchester. And so you might be able to find a jelly near you where you can meet up with other people. You don't necessarily have to talk to them. You can do, but it's just a case of meeting up and being with other people, particularly if you're a solopreneur.
In the UK, do we not call this co-working?
Yeah, it's the whole idea is co-working, but it's also jelly as well. I mean, you can call them whatever you like.
If
but
they've got jelly beans, it's a jelly piece. All right, okay. All right. If there's jelly beans, it's a jelly.
I want actual jelly, not jelly beans.
Yes. Well, that's Jello in America, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true actually. Okay, if you're listening, what do you call this? Do you call it co-working or do you call it a jelly?
Jelly. I think jelly is way catchier.
It is way.
Thank you, Ian, for bringing that term to us.
It is co-working, but it's not networking. That was one of the things about jellies, that they're not for getting business. Although actually, I have got business from jellies because you're just talking with people and finding out a little bit more about their business. So they are great. And then of course conferences. How do you cope going to a conference if you're an introvert? Some survival tips. So before I went to Social Media Marketing World, I was quite scared. I knew there were thousands of people there. I knew some of the people there, but I didn't know everyone. I knew a lot of the people online. So what I did is I booked quite a few conversations with people I half knew on Skype. And we chatted before we met. So basically my idea here was to get all the small talk out of the way. And it really worked. We got to know each other. And when we met at Social Media Marketing World, we didn't have to kind of talk about how's the weather and how are you and all that kind of stuff. We actually get into the nitty gritty, if that's the right phrase to use, and talk about stuff. And so I highly recommend, if you are shy or introverted, before you go to a conference, and maybe this is something you could do for a TommyCon, maybe you're a little bit worried about going, you're introverted and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to be scared, nobody's going to like me. Why don't you just chat with people beforehand and maybe book a couple of calls with people and talk with people? And then when you go there, you'll have so much more to talk about. You get that out of the way. So conferences are great, and they're also great for introverts, because actually you'll probably find that at most of these conferences, a kind of big proportion will be introverted. And finally, I just wanted to briefly talk about the 5 love languages. Now, this is a really good book. I can't remember the author. This is nothing to do with social media, but I'm going to make it about social media. Are you aware of the 5 love languages, guys?
No.
Yes.
Italian,
No,
French.
yeah.
You are?
Yeah. We had a client who talked about that once. Yeah.
Well, it's great. It's great. The 5 love languages is really how we interact with other people. I mean, it's the original book is talking about with your partner, with your wife or girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. But the idea, the concept is how we express our love for other people and how we prefer to receive love. And there's different ways of doing it. Now, I think when it comes to social media, it's the same. We can love people, or we can share our knowledge, and we can interact with people in different ways. And we need to understand that everyone out there has a different way of expressing their gratitude or receiving it. And so the 5 love languages are like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through them all very quickly, but then talk about how that would work for social media. Now, there is one where it's a little bit tricky. So I'd love to hear from you guys how you would maybe make that work for social media. You'll understand what I mean when we get there. Okay. So the first one is quality time. So if this could be with your friends, you want to spend quality time with them. If you don't spend quality time with them, you don't feel loved by them. And so if a friend of yours says, "Oh, you're a really, really great friend," but they never spend time with you, you kind of think, well, you're just saying it. You don't really like me because you don't want to spend quality time. So I think quality time on social media is really important. It takes time to interact with your audience. It takes a lot of interactions before some of your audience will feel they know you, that you care about them. So you need to spend quality time with individuals. So that could be, for example, sending those videos. It could be a lot of interactions. It could be a longer email. It could be those conversations. So quality time, really, really important. The next one is physical touch. And this is the one that's difficult on social media because it's obviously virtual. So physical touch is probably one of my highest love languages. For example, I say to my wife, I love you. And she says, she loves me. But I love cuddles. I love hugs. And like if you bump into me at Atomicon, watch out because I'll probably give you a hug. So it's how I express my love for people. So, but when it comes to social media, I'm not quite sure how you could use that. If there are your audience who like physical touch, it's maybe a little bit more tricky, but maybe again, it's more the visual thing. It's sending videos and things like that. I'll let you guys think about how you could make that work for social media. Acts of service. This is really important. So again, my wife, one of her highest ones is acts of service. I can say to her, I love you lots of times, but she says, well, that's great, but why haven't you done the washing up? If you really love me, you do washing up. Some of your audience out there, they speak. Their love language is acts of service. So why don't you do things for people on social media? You could do help them with something. For example, if you've got some expertise that they don't have, why don't you go out and make their day by doing something for free for them? That's I've seen that happen a lot. It will, for people who for which acts of service is really high up in their love languages, that will speak absolute volumes. This is another one for me, which is very high up, words of affirmation. So if people say nice things about me, that warms my heart. And there's a lot of people out there that need to have those encouragements and those words of affirmation. So for you, this might not be the natural thing. Again, with my wife found this quite difficult when we got married because she didn't really say I love you very much to me because, well, surely that was obvious. Of course I love you. I don't need to say it. But she quickly realized that I needed to hear that. And so when it comes to social media, I think we need to you remember that people out there need encouragement. So the people that you interact with, if they've written an article, if they've produced something, then look at it, and if you like it, say so. So often we don't say words of encouragement to people because it maybe doesn't come naturally, or maybe it feels like we're being a little bit sickly or something. I don't know.
I think that for like everyone in the group as well, like if ever anyone shares something, like what we see is a lot of people encouraged by other members go and comment and share it, and it's like really, really nice. But I almost want that to become more of a thing in future. Like if you see a fellow member share something, not necessarily just in the group, but if you can give words of encouragement, then it'll help. It'll help give them support and encouragement, but it'll also come back in your favor as well.
Absolutely, and I think it needs to be done in a truthful way. You know, don't just say, "Oh, that's great, you're amazing," and actually at the end of the day, you just want something out of them. You know, don't be like that. But you know, it's. I think people need that. And then the final one is gifts. And again, you might think this is difficult. So, for example, when it comes to social media, so for example, some people in their relationship, they just love if your wife or husband buys you flowers, it really makes you feel loved, or it could be something else that you like, a box of chocolates or something like that. It really makes you feel loved. Well, some people out there, it just speaks volumes. So why don't you buy something physical for them, like it could be a box of chocolates, it could be a packet of ready salted crisps, and send it out to them in post as a physical thing. And that again can speak volumes, because hardly anyone does it. And the actual physical, you know, if you're interacting in a digital medium, sending something in the post, even if it's a postcard, can mean a huge amount. So something else to think about there. Anyway, that's it. I hope that was useful, and if anyone's got any questions, I'm very happy to answer any questions, or we can obviously follow up on the discussion later as well.
That was amazing.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's amazing.
I just say Julia had an amazing idea for the physical touch.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Physical touch via emoji.
Oh my god, I was
fist
thinking.
bump.
Yeah.
High five.
I am a very physical person, and I constantly send like the high five emoji, because it feels like I'm giving them something physical and I'm getting it back.
Like that. How about a kind of animated GIF of you, Pete, kind of giving somebody a hug like that? You know, might be a bit.
Just like hugs. Oh wait, we're not on screen. Wait. I'll put us on screen. Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Yes.
Lots of love.
Just send lots of pictures like this of me hugging myself.
Sending
hugs.
That's like physical touch of yourself. I'm sure that's a gift that anybody really wants.
Okay.
Maybe needs a bit more thought, but you know, you're on the right lines.
I feel like that was more than just a talk for introverts. Like when you actually look into it, it just makes complete sense to do that. Whether you're introverted, whether you're extroverted, to grow your business with social media anyway, doesn't it?
I think so. And actually, you know, if you're an extrovert, it's just understanding introverts, and everyone's on a sliding scale. So as we saw with the numbers, you know, some people are full 12s, some people are 4s, and I don't know, there's probably even like some zeros out there, and some people are slap bang in the middle. So we're all different, and it's just understanding that we're all different.
Yeah, I feel like that was the big one for me as well. Just looking at those lists when you were going through like the quiz, like how we both had qualities of introverts.
Yeah,
and it's not like you are full on introvert or full on extrovert.
Yeah.
Like
it's interesting.
Is rubbish at small talk.
Terrible.
I'm great at small talk.
That's interesting, yeah. Well, I think with small talk, I think I'm pretty good with small talk, but I think there's a difference between being pretty good at it. So I've learned how to do it.
Yeah.
Do I enjoy it? No, I don't. Well, to a point. I mean, for example, one thing that really frustrates me is when people say, "How are you?" and just say it. What you're supposed to say? Yeah, I'm all right. How are you? Yeah, I'm all right. And I've kind of got used to that. And this is a typical introvert reply. So if you ask me how I am, I'll probably say something like, "Yeah, I'm okay. Last time I checked," or if I'm really not good, I'll give them a get out. So I'm not that great at the moment, but I'll be okay. So that allows them not to have to go into that conversation.
Yeah.
And I think you tend to be a good reader of people. So sometimes you'll know if they're wanting to go a little bit deeper or if they're not. If they start walking away from you like this, you've gone too far. So you end up being quite a good reader of people, I think.
Yeah.
Social media's more difficult though, isn't it? Because you can't, reading people on social media or any kind of digital media is a lot more difficult. So I think you have to work harder at that.
Yeah.
I think you can often tell by the response as well, like whether they come back and ask you more questions or give you something that you can latch onto and talk more about.
Yeah.
It leads you on to a good conversation. And I think definitely having those, what I actually thought was really interesting when you said about how you moved from Twitter to Facebook to have those deeper conversations. And the funny thing is, like, it's not only good for an introvert, but it's actually really good for engagement. So I know that a lot of your posts, you have like loads and loads and loads of comments and like masses of engagement and like people replying with massive messages because you ask really good questions, and you offer up a little bit of yourself as well. And I think that's a tactic that we can all use, like with our business pages on social media, asking those deeper conversation style questions. It leads to better engagement on your page as well, which is good.
And I think with those, I don't always think of them. So, but they happen. The kind of the questions pop in my head at kind of weird times. Usually when I'm having a shower, if I'm walking out. So I think actually having somewhere you can write these questions down and bank them up, and maybe then you could ask a deep question every week. I need a kind of a sound effect for deep. Anyway.
You don't need a sound effect. That was pretty solid.
You can just go for it.
Yeah. I think we answered most of the questions as we were going as well. But if you do have any questions, anyone that's watching on the replay, just comment on this post in the Atomic Power group. Or if you're watching this sometime in the future, just post in the Atomic Power group too, and we will jump in. Ian's in the Atomic Power group as well, so he is around.
Yeah, and like one final thing there as well. When you said about social media marketing world and how a lot of the people you met there were introverts, at first that really surprised me when I went. But then it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Like, if you are more introverted, social media is a place where you can be around people when you want, and then you can stop when you're fed up.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting that a lot of the speakers were actually introverts as well. When we went, I was kind of shocked at that. Because you go and you expect them all to be like, wow, like, what's...
But you can do
obnoxious.
that.
No. But then you go to talk to them and they're like, hi. And it's like...
Well, yeah, it's this kind of difference. Like if I'm on stage, I'm going to put a lot of energy into it. And actually, the way I'm speaking at the moment, I'm putting a lot more energy than if I was just talking with like one of you.
Yeah.
I'd probably be speaking a bit more like this, and so I think we've got different energy levels, and this is one thing actually I talk about when I'm teaching people on live video. You need to kind of ramp up the energy, not in a completely over the top way. I think it needs to be natural, and it's the same way as we interact with people in real life as well. So we're all different, and that's what makes it all fun.
Awesome. I'm loving it. I'm going to be watching you at Social Media Marketing World now. Thinking,
I want to see how you ramp up the energy. Just doing star jumps behind the stage.
I'm not going to do
that. Ian, where can people find out more about you and what you're doing with live video as well?
So my website's probably the best place to go. It's iag.me, but you can also find me on the interwebs and social medias. I've carelessly scattered myself around the place, so just search for my name, Ian Anderson Gray, and it's with an A, Gray. and love to connect with you on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever.
Awesome. Right. Yeah, I think that's
Okay,
about it.
are we good?
Yeah, that's about it. So we're gonna go and let you lie down now, Ian.
Yes.
Thank you so much for spending the time with us. That's been amazing. If you've got any more questions, guys, do let us know, and we will see you all very soon.
Bye, everybody. Bye, it's Alex.